Welcome back to the channel, my friends. Warhammer Man Studios. I'm Warhammer Man, and today we're taking a look at Day 2 of the Grotmas calendar, Dark Angels. This video is sponsored by CMO Games. More on that later. Grotmas calendar, Day 2, Hark the Dark Angels. The combined forces of the Deathwing and the Ravenwing are front and center for today's Grotmas calendar in a new detachment for the Dark Angels, the Lion's Blade. There is no more significant duty than the inner circle of the Dark Angels than the pursuit and capture of the Fallen. A Lion's Blade task force combines the speed and maneuverability of the Ravenwing with the obdurate might of the Deathwing. The bikes, aircraft, and speeders of the former thunder across the battlefield, smashing through enemy fortifications to place teleport homers in key positions behind enemy lines. Then comes the Deathwing, appearing in crackling flashes of blue light to enact retribution with brutal efficiency. Dark Angels players will be using Ravenwing models to pin down their enemies within the Lion's Claws, a detachment rule that forces units that fall back from them to take a desperate escape test. The Deathwing then earn +2 to their charge rolls whenever their target is within engagement range of Ravenwing units. The Enhancements and Stratagems in the detachment continue this joint cooperation theme, with the Fulgus Magna Teleport Homer. A Deathwing character can place themselves and their unit back into strategic reserves, so as to rapidly redeploy Terminator units. With focused determination, the Ravenwing can use the Knights of Iron stratagem to move through the terrain features which would normally shield their targets. Alright, so we got a new detachment for the Dark Angels. Let's jump in and take a look. Alright, so we have the Lion's Blade Task Force. So you're still going to have access to the actual army rule, which in this case is going to be Oath of Moment, and then you're also going to have a detachment rule in the Lion's Claws. Each time an enemy unit, excluding monsters and vehicles, within engagement range of one or more Ravenwing units from your army falls back, all models in the enemy unit must take a desperate escape test. When doing so, if the enemy unit is battle shocked, subtract 1 from each of those tests. And then the second bullet point, each time a Deathwing unit from your army declares a charge, if one or more targets of that charge are within engagement range of one or more Ravenwing units from your army, add 2 to the charge rolls. And then restrictions, your army can include Dark Angels units, but it cannot include any Adeptus Astartes units drawn from any other chapter. Alright, so essentially you're going to be combining your Ravenwing special rule with your Deathwing special rule. Now the majority of the units that are going to gain the Ravenwing keyword are things like bikes or speeders. The majority of the things that are going to gain the Deathwing keyword are characters, Terminators, Dreadnoughts, tanks, like Land Raiders, etc. So essentially the idea here is that you pin down the units with the Ravenwing fast stuff, and then you come in from deep strike and declare a charge, and then instead of needing like a 9-inch charge, you're going to need a 7-inch charge. So not necessarily bad. There's definitely some synergy with the rules, but they're not overly powerful. So now jumping over to enhancements, first we have the Calibanite armaments, 15 points. Adeptus Astartes model only, add 1 to the damage characteristic of the bearer's melee weapon. So this is very good. Anytime you can take a melee weapon from damage 2 to damage 3, that is definitely nice because there's a lot of damage reduced by 1 in the game or half damage in the game. So being able to do 3 damage is definitely big. Then we have Lord of the Hunt for 15 points, Ravenwing model only. The bearer's unit is eligible to shoot and declare a charge in a turn in which it fell back, and you can reroll desperate escape tests taken for models in the bearer's unit. So this is Ravenwing only. It affects the entire unit though. You have fall back, shoot, and then charge again, so not bad. Rerolling desperate escape tests, also not bad. And then we have Stalwart Champion, 25 points. So Captain, Chaplain, or Lieutenant model only. While the bearer's unit is not battle shocked, add 1 to the objective control characteristic of models in the bearer's unit. So again, not bad. You're going to be able to take a captain, a chaplain, or a lieutenant, and then put them in a key unit and increase the OC of all the models in the unit by 1. So you'd be able to potentially have Terminators with 2 OC or something like Inner Circle Companions with 3 OC. And then we have the Fulgus Magna for 20 points. Deathwing model only. Once per battle at the end of your opponent's turn, if the bearer's unit is not within engagement range of 1 or more enemy units, the bearer can use this enhancement. If it does, remove the bearer's unit from the battlefield and place it into strategic reserves. So you'll essentially be able to up down 1 time with a unit. So you could use this on something like Terminators, pick them up and then re-deep strike with them, or something like Blade Guard veterans or Stern Guard veterans to essentially go back into strategic reserves. So overall, detachment rule is okay. The enhancements are okay. Let's check out the stratagems next. Alright, so we have 6 new stratagems. Overpowering Exaction, 1 command point. When command phase or the start of the fight phase. Target 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army. Effect, select 1 enemy unit within engagement range of your unit. The enemy unit must make a battle shock test. When doing so, if the unit has Deathwing or Ravenwing keyword, subtract 1 from the result. Restrictions, you can only use this stratagem once per battle round. So you can't use this in multiple phases like your command phase and then again at the start of the fight phase. Presumably you're going to use this on a Deathwing or Ravenwing squad. And the main reasons you would try to use this is to battle shock a unit so they don't score an objective, or to battle shock a unit so they're not eligible to use stratagems on. So pretty useful. It does have some open usage, as you could use it in either command phase, not just your own, to stop your opponent from scoring, and then again at the start of either fight phase, so your opponent's or your own, to stop them from interrupting, buffing a unit, or putting on some defensive strats. And then we have Armor of Contempt, quintessential Space Marine strat, 1 command point when your opponent's shooting phase or fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that was selected as the target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Effect until the end of the phase. Each time an attack targets that unit, worsen the armor penetration characteristic of that attack by 1. Always a nice strat to see in any detachment. Then we have Knights of Iron, 1 command point when your movement phase or charge phase. Target 1 Ravenwing unit from your army. Effect until the end of the phase. Each time a model in the unit makes a normal, advance, or charge move, it can move horizontally through terrain features. So this is a really good strat. You're going to be able to use it on Ravenwing, so mostly going to be using this on bikes or bike squads. It allows you to ignore intervening terrain in the movement or charge phase. There's no limitation on being able to use this 2 times in a turn, just once in a phase as normal. So that means you can essentially use it in your movement phase and then again in your charge phase. So currently in Chaos Knights, this is one of the most powerful stratagems they have access to. Being able to do this on a bike squad to charge into combat or to move through a piece of terrain to get access to extra movement instead of having to go around a terrain feature is very strong. So I think this is a really good stratagem. When your shooting phase, just after a Ravenwing unit from your army has selected its targets, target the Ravenwing unit. Effect, select 1 enemy unit within 12 inches of your unit that was selected as a target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Until the end of the phase, each time a friendly Deathwing unit makes an attack that targets that enemy unit, add 1 to the wound roll. So you're going to do this in your shooting phase. You're going to shoot with your Ravenwing unit within 12 inches, and then you're going to shoot with the Deathwing unit afterwards to add 1 to the wound roll. So it's not bad. You could essentially use this on like a Terminator unit with a bunch of shooting for volume of fire and an increased +1 to the wound roll. So even Stormbolters on a 10-man unit, it's going to be 40 shots, and then you're going to have +1 to the wound roll. So even against a tough target like a knight or something like that, normally you'd be wounding on 6s. Now you're going to wound on 5s. So essentially doubling your damage output. So definitely not bad. Alternatively, probably what this is going to be best on is something like a Land Raider or a Shooty Dreadnought. They're going to gain that Deathwing keyword, so suddenly like your las cannons on a Land Raider are going to be wounding most targets on 2s or maybe 3s if it's a tougher target like a Knight. So not bad for 1 command point. Now a quick word from today's sponsor, CMO Games. CMO Games carries a full range of Games Workshop products including miniatures, paint, terrain, tools, and more. They take pre-orders for most Games Workshop new releases as early as possible, usually 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. CMO Games offers 15% off of MSRP for most all Games Workshop products and offer fast free shipping to the continental United States on orders over $50. Most orders ship out within 24 hours. You know their customer service is top-notch as they've been selling games online for over 20 years. Use the affiliate link below and let them know that Warhammer Man sent you. And then we have Strength in Unity, 1 command point when fight phase just after an enemy unit has selected its targets. Target 1 Adeptus Astartes unit from your army that was selected as the target of 1 or more of the attacking unit's attacks. Effect, if that enemy unit is within engagement range of 1 or more Ravenwing units from your army until the end of the phase, each time a model in the enemy unit makes an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll. If that enemy unit is within engagement range of 1 or more Deathwing units from your army until the end of the phase, each time a model in that enemy unit makes an attack, if the strength characteristic of the attack is greater than the toughness characteristic of the attack, subtract 1 from the wound roll. Restrictions, a unit cannot be targeted by the Armor of Contempt stratagem in the same phase. So essentially you'll use this in the fight phase. If you have a Ravenwing unit in the combat, your unit is going to be -1 to hit. If you have a Deathwing unit in that combat and the strength is higher than your toughness, you're going to be -1 to wound. So essentially if you have a Ravenwing unit and a Deathwing unit in that combat, whichever unit you use this strat on is going to be -1 to hit and -1 to be wounded. So this is going to substantially increase the durability of your unit that you target with this, especially if you have a Ravenwing and Deathwing unit in that combat. But of note, you can't also stack Armor of Contempt for like super durability. So again, not a bad stratagem, but probably not game breaking. And then we have Inescapable Wrath, 2 command points for this one. When end of your opponent's charge phase, target 1 Deathwing infantry or Deathwing walker unit from your army that is within 6 inches of 1 or more enemy units, and would be eligible to declare a charge against 1 or more of those enemy units if it were your charge phase. Effect, your unit now declares a charge that only targets 1 or more of those enemy units, and you can resolve that charge. Restrictions, note that even if this charge is successful, your unit does not receive any charge bonus this turn. Okay, so this is very, very powerful. So it is 2 command points. It's similar to heroic intervention, but it has some very key differentiating factors. One, it's at the end of your opponent's charge phase, so nothing actually needs to happen to trigger this stratagem. You're going to target one of your Deathwing infantry or Deathwing walker units, which means you can't use something like a land raider. Your unit has to be within 6 inches of one or more enemy units, and it has to be eligible to declare a charge, if it were your charge phase. So essentially you have to be within 6 inches of an enemy unit, you have to be an infantry or walker model with the Deathwing keyword, and you also can't be like locked in combat. And now your unit declares a charge that only targets one or more of those enemy units, and then you resolve that charge. And then the restriction is you're not going to gain fights first from this charge. So it's similar to something like heroic intervention, but the difference is heroic intervention is after an enemy unit declares a charge, and then you essentially countercharge that unit. This does not actually require a trigger. It just happens at the end of your opponent's charge phase. So your opponent does not need to charge you or even do anything. They just have to be within 6 inches of you, and then suddenly you charge on their turn. And because they're not going to have made a charge move, they're not going to gain the fights first ability from charging. So now your unit is actually going to be fighting first because it's your opponent's turn. So this is very, very strong. This is essentially like a game-changing stratagem. So now your opponent has to make sure not to position within 6 inches of any of your units, or you can essentially charge them. So you could basically have like a Deathwing Knight squad on an objective. Normally your opponent would move up and out OC you on that objective, but not charge you. And then on your turn, they would control the objective or tie you for the objective, stopping you from scoring it. You bust out this strat for 2 command points. You essentially charge them, fight them, probably kill them, and then stop this play from happening. So this is a very, very powerful stratagem. With something like heroic intervention, we've seen how powerful that is. It used to be 2 command points, and now it's only 1. With this stratagem, I think it being 2 command points is definitely the correct choice, because this is very good. You're also going to be taking Azrael in your army, which means you're going to have a glut of command points. Realistically, you could use this on a squad that has a captain inside of it, so you're going to get reduced command point back down to 1. So I think this is really, really good. This is probably the best thing about the entire detachment. So overall, I think this is a decent detachment. Now, the problem with a Space Marine detachment, especially one of the non-codex compliant chapters like Dark Angels or Blood Angels, there's going to be a lot of tough competition out there, because they essentially have access to the 6 Space Marine detachments, plus their 3 detachments in their own codex. So basically, this detachment is one of 10 to choose from. So there's going to be a lot more competition for which detachment is the best or which one suits your army the best. This one is definitely very situational. Obviously, list composition is going to be key in this. You're going to be wanting to use Ravenwing and Deathwing units in your army. But I think overall, there's definitely some play for this detachment. I could totally see people rocking it. I think the countercharge stratagem is very, very good. The extra damage enhancement is really good. Also, being able to up down a Deathwing unit is very strong. So there's definitely some play here. I think you would have to build your list around this, but it's definitely a little something outside the norm. It definitely has a little bit of jank to it. Rather than having something like a reactive move, you now have like the ability to charge if somebody's within 6. So I could definitely see some play with this detachment. I don't think it's going to be game breaking. I don't think it's going to take the meta by storm. But again, whenever you get a detachment that's competing against 9 other detachments, there's a lot of stiff competition. As where something like Death Guard that just got their 2nd detachment, you're basically choosing between 2. So let me know what you think of the new Lion's Blade Task Force. You think people are going to be rocking this? Are you interested in trying it out? Always like to hear back from you guys in the comments. And as always, special thanks to CMO Games for sponsoring the channel. Check out the link in the description to save 15% on most Games Workshop products. And make sure to tell them that Warhammer Man sent you. Warhammer Man Studios, I'm Warhammer Man, and this is looking pretty good. Let's see what's happening tomorrow. And I'm out of here.